Now the next verse of the song, he gets into the first of two solos that he plays. And we're just going to take these phrase by phrase, and you can listen to the original and get them in context. So he's going to play, and that's how he starts out the solo. And he's doing this lick, which Freddie King uses a lot, starting on the 8th fret of the 3rd string to the 9th fret, 8th, 10th fret of the 2nd string, and winds up on the 8th fret of the 1st string. Then he's going to throw in 10th fret of the 4th string and wind up on the 8th fret of the 3rd string. So that whole first lick, just like that. And then he goes, starts off that climbing lick, but he stops on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. And he goes to a bend, a long bend with his first finger on the 8th fret of the 1st string, pinky on the 11th fret. And he does that lick, which is pretty typical Freddie King. Going to the 8th fret of the 1st string to the 10th fret of the 1st string, then to the 10th fret of the 2nd string, back to the 8th fret of the 1st string, 11th fret, 8th fret of the 2nd string. So like this. And then he goes to the 3rd string with a little lick on the 3rd string. So that whole lick, something like that. And that is the next phrase of the song. Then he goes, whoops. So this is a bend where he's bending from the 3rd string. He's got all 3 fingers, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fingers on the 8th, 9th, 10th frets of the 3rd string. Bending, and then to the 2nd string on the 8th fret, and then to the 1st string on the 8th fret, then 11th fret, 10th fret, 11th fret, 8th fret of the 2nd string, and then another one of those bends, and when he bends, so he does it, he's going to get the 8th fret, and then the 10th or 8th fret of the 2nd, 8th fret of the 1st string, and the 2nd string. So then to the bend on the G string, 3rd string. So that whole lick. And then he does this really cool Freddie King thing that you hear in a number of his songs. So that kind of thing, which is typical Freddie King. So he starts on the 2nd fret of the 8th fret of the 2nd string. Then for the 11th fret to the 8th fret of the 1st string. Then he's going to hammer on to the 10th fret of the 1st string to the 8th fret of the 1st string, and then wind up on the 2nd string at the 10th fret. So that whole lick, first part of it. So that whole part. This part, 8th fret, 1st string. Let me do that again. Then to the 11th fret of the 2nd string. Then he goes from there. Then he hammers on the 2nd string at the 10th fret and winds up on the 10th fret of the 3rd string. Sorry, I think too much when I play that. And then he goes something like that. So let me just do that again. gets here, he's going to go into that again. Doing that same kind of pattern that we've done. That's it right there. So he's going, done that before. 8th fret of the 1st string, 11th fret of the 2nd string, 8th fret of the 2nd string, then the 10th fret, 8th fret of the 3rd string. Then he goes into an easy bend. And that bend is just got his first finger on the 8th fret of the 1st string. And then he's bending the 3rd string with the 2nd and 3rd finger. Does it 4 times. And then another one of those bends on the 3rd and 4th string. And then wraps up the first solo. So there you go. That's me working through the first solo on Freddie King's San Jose. The second solo on Freddie King's San Jose. He starts out like this. And he's starting out with that same lick that we've used before. And he's bouncing back and forth between the 3rd and 4th strings. 10th fret of the 4th string, 8th fret of the 3rd string. And I should mention this, that when Freddie King played, a lot of times he'd use his right hand palm to mute the strings down by the bridge. He just rests his hand lightly on the strings. And he can control the tone of the strings, the sound. You will see a good example of that coming up. So he does that. Whoops. Then he goes here. Now you've got a C scale here. Something like that. Based on the 2nd position C bar chord. That's how I remember where it's at. So that little lick is just out of that C scale. And it's entirely on the 5th and 7th frets of the 3rd and 4th strings. That lick right there. Mess around with that. And then the next phrase, he does something like this. So after this, not sure if that's note for note, but that's pretty close. So he's sliding from the 8th to the 9th fret of the 3rd string, then to the 8th to the 10th fret of the 2nd string, back to the 8th fret of the 2nd string. Does that lick, which we've done before. 11th fret, 8th fret of the 1st string, hammer on the 10th fret of the 2nd string, pull off, and then wind up on the 10th fret of the 2nd string. And then he does this bend, which we've done before. 3rd string bend, 8th fret of the 1st string. Then he's going to go to a long bend on the 2nd string. We've done this before, but he's going to hold it differently. He's going to bend it up, and then get the 8th fret of the 1st string, and then hold the bend. Then he lets go of the bend. Something like that. So the whole thing, let's take it from the... That's what he does. So he's going to bend it twice, let go of it, and then wind up on the 10th fret of the 3rd string. Something like that. And it gets to that point. So let's do that whole thing. does it. I think he does it 3 times. And then the bend. And then into this really cool lick. So he starts. So that same lick that we've done before. We've done that before. So that whole thing. And then he's going to do this scrape on the first, second, and third strings of the 8th fret, which is part of a C minor chord. And he's just going to get the top part of it. And he's going to scrape it with his finger pick. Now he used a thumb pick and a finger pick. So he's probably using his first finger to scrape up. You can use a pick. And then wind up on the 10th fret of the 4th string. Now when you do that, you're also muting the strings with your right hand palm. So that whole phrase, he does the bend, bounce back and forth between the 10th and the 8th fret of the 4th string, and then into that. Let's try the whole second solo. Let's see if we can play it all the way through. Basically what he's doing. So that is the second solo. After the 2 solo verses on San Jose, he goes into something like this. With the stop time in there. So he starts out does a little bit of a scrape with the pick, just like he did in the previous verse, and he's muting it with his right hand palm. So he starts out like this. Whoops. And then the rest of the way he just plays it the same way. To the 4. To the stop time. Then he does that little lick. So let's do the stop time. So this double stop, and then the bend, and he's going to bend on the 3rd string, bring it back down to the 10th fret, to the 8th fret, and then to the 10th fret and the 8th fret of the 4th string, and then bend. Gets the, not bend, but gets the 11th fret of the 2nd string, then bends the 3rd string. So let me play the whole lick for you from the stop time. Like that. So let's play the whole first phrase of that, whole first part of that. Keeps going. Something like that. And then winds up. So he's playing on that 3rd, the bends on the 3rd string. You can take what you've learned so far and get that note for note. Or he does this. Something like that. Then we head into the final verse, which he really plays the introduction part again and then throws in an end tag. So the last verse of San Jose, he goes back to the original opening of the song. And then he stops there, and then he does this walk down. Typical Freddy King end tag. So the end tag, he starts on the 8th fret, 7th fret of the 5th string. So he's like, then to the 8th fret, 9th fret, 10th frets of the 5th string, and then a C chord, C 9th chord, which he comes into from above, and winds it up like that. So the last part of the song, let's play it all the way through. And that is the end of Freddy King San Jose. Now I'd say what I've showed you there is probably about anywhere from 90 to 95, maybe 95-6%. Note for note, not completely. So if you want to learn from this lesson, if you want to learn the song, you can play exactly what I played, or you can get on YouTube, listen to the original, figure out the little parts that maybe I missed, or you can play it your own way. And again, someone asked for the song, and what I'm showing you here will definitely give you the tools to be able to figure out the whole song and play it the way you want to play it. I hope this lesson was helpful. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, anything, contact me here at Old School Blues Guitar, and I'll see you again soon with another lesson.